The Recluse is one of the more polarizing Nightfarers in the game because on one hand, she can be a big liability to a team or just be terrible in solo, but she can also very easily be the most powerful character too. Like a good Recluse player with a little bit of good RNG is the best teammate you could possibly ever ask for. That is also assuming that other people are doing their job at staying alive and just distracting enemies. Because yeah, the Recluse can be pretty RNG heavy and very reliant on teammates due to her poor survivability and her kit being designed around multiplayer use too. But first things first, I want to touch on her scalings and her stats. She has tied for the worst health in the game. She has 0 synergy with 99% of the weapons due to her poor strength and dexterity scaling, but she does have that S in both intelligence and faith, coupled with that A in FP, so obviously she is designed to be the spellcaster using either incantations or sorceries. Now, spells in this game can do monstrous amounts of damage, and with the right spells, you can be equipped for any scenario. Catch Flame, Carrion Slicer being those borderline broken melee options. Shattering Crystals, the more Ice Storm, Flame of Frenzy are all solid AoE options. And there's like dozens of like great single target projectile options for both spell types too. I'm obviously not going to go over every single spell. I do have dedicated videos for that. Now do keep in mind these videos are from like Elden Ring perspective, but they still are relevant because the spells do perform pretty much the exact same way. But when it comes to the fast-paced nature of this game and how little FP you get, the quicker and more efficient types of spells tend to be preferred in most cases. But this can also be an issue as well because if you want to be able to have a variety of spells, it's just up to chance whether all that happens. Whereas that RNG element is not as prevalent as it is in the other characters. Now you can very well always end up with a handful of really good spells, assuming that you do know all the locations for these seals and staves. And these are all designed to be day 1 points of interest too, which is pretty cool. Now, one thing that I don't like is that it can be very annoying to have all these staves and seals that you have to switch around all the time. I kind of wish they implemented a system where you can just have the staves or catalysts in your inventory and then it automatically put all those spells in like a collection that you can just toggle through. Whether it's be the traditional way that we're used to, or just having some type of like drop-down menu, similar to what we have with the Revenant and her summons. But this concept in keeping track of the spells and switching back and forth, it can get really annoying and it just makes me not really want to play the character often. And I only really have fun with the character when I have like a staff with Carrion Slicer and a projectile, or like a seal with Catch Flame or Bestial Sling and a projectile. That's why I don't really have to be switching my catalysts that often. And speaking of which, I know that every catalyst has its own set spell and a randomized spell, but it would be nice if both spells were like labeled on the screen at least. And please, for the love of God, remove rejection from the finger seal and replace it with a damaging based spell. It also does add in some more white rarity seals as well that actually have some damaging spells, so we're not getting the same finger seal every single time. Like at least for the staves, you pretty much always guaranteed a damaging option. But as for the weapon options outside of the catalysts, you pretty much only have 2 that you should be looking out for in the Cypher Parter and the Coated Sword, as these do have like a pure S scaling in Faith, so you will get some decent returns out of it, unlike every other weapon that just scales better with Strength or Dexterity. Like even the projectile-based skills of the Glintstone Chris, Wing of Astel, Darkmoon Greatsword, Sword of Night and Flame, all these actually get more damage with the Wilder compared to the Recluse, because that's just how the unique skills actually work. But for normal skills, or those normal Ashes of War, like Sacred Blade, Glintstone Pebble, or even things like Hoarfrost Stomp, they can do very well with the Recluse. But if you ended up finding something like Carrion Slicer, then you don't even need to worry about having a weapon because it only consumes 4 FP and it's like outputs more DPS than like most weapons in the game. But I would still carry around an elemental weapon just in case you ran out of FP, so you actually have something to absorb with your character skill. Which we might as well talk about that next. I'm going to touch on both the passive and the skill together, as they're pretty much one in the same. Now, when playing the Recluse, you will notice that there will be some of these elemental rings that are on enemies or on your teammates. These appear when they have been hit by a certain element like Holy, Lightning, Magic, or Fire, and whatever they have been hit with last is what is going to appear. Now, these affinity residues can be absorbed by using the skill, and it does multiple things. The most important one being the regeneration of FP. It regenerates about 20 FP every single time, so at level 5, you need to absorb about 6 different residues to refill back to max FP, and at level 15, it needs to be absorbed about 10 times, obviously assuming you don't have any like FP boosting buffs. Now this absorb is actually a pretty quick animation, and if you have hit an enemy with a cocktail mix that has like some damage over time, then you can regen your FP pretty quickly. Or obviously if you are in a team with players using elemental damage and fighting a boss that does elemental damage, then you'll pretty much always have a residue to absorb, but do keep in mind that once you do, it goes away even if it was actually done by another Recluse teammate. Now the other part of this is the character skill Magic Cocktail. Once you absorb an affinity residue 3 times, it will fill up your Magic Cocktail. Then upon the next time using it, you will perform a completely original spell that consumes no FP. And the spell that appears is dependent on the combination of which elements were absorbed. Now there are a total of 14 different cocktail combinations. The more basic and lower damaging ones will have like no combinations of different elements, and the more flashy and harder hitting spells will be the ones that have 3 different elements. Now on screen right now, I'm just going to have a list of all the damaging spells and roughly how much damage they do. Now the lightning ones typically do perform the best in terms of damage, but unfortunately that is also like one of the more rare elements to come by. The magic lightning combo is a personal favorite of mine due to it being really quick, goes through enemies and does decent damage. The fire lightning dodge does actually surprisingly well in terms of damage, and that ice AoE attack that requires 3 different elements, not including fire damage, yeah, it does do some pretty low damage, but it is probably the best cocktail spell that you can use due to it doing a lot of frost buildup, so technically it can be the highest damaging once you do proc frost, and it also gives you iframes throughout the entire animation, which is great. Also, the Fire Breath one does look like it does do some pretty poor damage, which is true, but it also does regenerate the HP and FP of your allies when they do get hit by it. Now, for a comparison, a fully charged Stars of Ruin does about half the damage of like these big giant AoE spells, and it does it in a lot less time. And this damage is recorded without using any buffs like more sorcery damage or an increase to charge sorceries. So yeah, pretty much your regular spells tend to just do better almost all the time. Like the only real benefit that these cocktail spells have is that they don't really consume any FP, because yeah, the damage ain't all there. The speeds of these spells are just a joke as well. Like good luck getting half of these spells off in a Night Lord fight, especially in solo play. Like the only value I have ever received out of this cocktail is when I have accidentally absorbed spells that make for a decent mix, or when I forgot to manage my FP and I ran out and I'll use like the damage over time spells to get my FP back. But other than that, it tends to just get in the way, because I would like to be able to absorb the residues to just get my FP back all the time, and I'll be forced to use the terrible cocktail spells every time I absorb something 3 times. So what really needs to be changed is 1, just let us like empty the cocktail mix with like a click of a button and have like no animation for it, so we can just like freely absorb as much as we want, and make the shitty damaging cocktail spells like have a really quick animation, like if you were to cast a glintstone pebble. Like some of these cocktail spells have no business having this long of an animation. Now in terms of the non-damaging spells, I don't really care for most of these either. The pure lightning gives you Bloodhound Step for a short duration, which is cool, but your dodge already does have like a decent amount of iframes and cover a nice distance already. The pure holy does give you some nice damage negation, but good luck finding some holy based spells. But if you do, I would try to build around the magic and holy buff, as it does give you infinite FP for a short duration, which is very nice, especially in multiplayer when you do have allies to take the aggro. And lastly, you also have Lightning Holy, which can like automatically parry enemies for like 10 seconds. Yeah, pretty useless. There is actually a bug involving this spell too right now, but it's not worth mentioning as it's useless and it's probably going to get fixed soon as well. So yes, overall, cool concept, pretty mid execution, as you'll almost never get the combination that you really want in multiplayer with how hectic it can be sometimes, and it's also just pretty suboptimal to try and get it in solo play, due to most of the spells just not even being that good, or just like worse than the regular spells that we already use. Now when it comes to her ultimate ability, Soul Blood Song, this is also pretty mid. Like literally her magic and holy infinite FP cocktail mix is like more useful than this, because yeah, this is a big giant AoE, doesn't do much damage, but it does mark these enemies, and when you hit these said marked enemies, you'll gain a small portion of health and FP, and it's kind of based on like how much damage you output, but yeah, it only lasts 15 seconds. Like this ult needs some love. Like I don't care what it is, just give it something else, because even the relic abilities don't even do much to help out. But yeah, she has like 3 character specific relics in total, 2 of which are meant for her ultimate, 1 giving you a 30% HP increase for 30 seconds afterwards, which is not too bad, but I would only really run this if it wasn't in combination with other like useful perks. And as for the other relic, it's going to be a damage boost for 15 seconds, and this damage boost is roughly around 15%, but it is at the cost of you getting procced with bleed, which is going to be a 20% health loss. Like, I don't really know why this had to have a trade-off, as if her ultimate was that good to begin with, but it's pretty much the same situation. I would only really run this perk if it was in combination with other good relic perks, because there's lots of damaging boosting stuff that you can benefit off that'll benefit the entire run and not just like the 30 seconds per ultimate. But her most important character-specific relic is the one that can cast Terra Magica when absorbing an affinity residue, which this is pretty much just like a free 15% damage buff to all of your magic sources. Now, yes, you do have to stay in the pool to benefit, which can be annoying, but in combination with certain spells, it's just a must-have, unless you are fighting a Night Lord boss that's like weaker to lightning or something, and you just plan to spam that the entire time. Then you're probably better building around that instead. But as for some other relics you can use, you can go many different ways. The new one off the collector signboard is great for FP, the Evergel one is great for damage. If you clear out just 3 Evergels, that's over 15% more damage to all of your sources. Also, using those spell school boosting buffs are just great, as they offer a 12% damage boost each and they will stack. I would mainly run things like the Crystallian Sorcery and the Dragon Cult Incantation increases due to how common those spells tend to appear and how good they are too. Same thing could be said for things like the Godslayer Incants and the Carrion Sword Incants. But anyway, my overall thoughts on the character is that she can be an absolute damaging machine due to her synergy with spells and how broken some of them can be, and also how reliable she can regenerate FP, although her lack of melee-based options make her very limited and reliant on getting good RNG to have these spells built for different ranges and different situations. Like especially in solo play, like a lot of spells you just aren't going to get off in time with how short the openings tend to be. Also combined with the unintuitive mess that is the spell casting system with all the toggling between the staves and also how slow and underpowered her cocktail spells are, she can easily make for a very frustrating experience, and that's before mentioning her lack of health and her low stamina. Like, she is a character that I'm glad to have as a teammate, obviously assuming they're good, but playing her is just kind of tedious. At least for me. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in this one. As always, let me know what your opinions are down in the comments below. And that is also all the characters now talked about. We did a review for all 8 of them. So at this point, I don't really know what else we're going to do. We might make some like videos on relics or whatnot. Still actually have those like solo based guides and do like those live commentary runs. So if those things do interest you, definitely do like and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next. See yas.